Our final guests are Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama's Peter Cooke and Jed Harris, who are presenting Mad Forest. Peter is the head of the School of Drama. Prior to coming to Pittsburgh, he served as deputy director and head of design at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney, Australia. Peter was awarded an Order of Australia for his, quote, service to the performing arts through theatrical design education, research, and administration. Jed is the associate teaching professor at the John Wells Directing Program, and he is directing Mad Forest. He was the associate director of City Theater for more than 20 years, and he recently directed The Task for Quantum Theater. Peter and Jed, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
Good morning.
Peter, why did you select Mad Forest?
Well, I try to put together a season of plays that's going to make people think about the world in which we live. I mean, the theatre can do many things. It can entertain, it can inform, but I like a theatre that you come out at the end of seeing a show where you actually think about it, longer than the drive home, so that you go home and ruminate on what you've seen, why the dramatic structure is the way it is, what's being spoken about, what's being portrayed, and just how these young actors in a theatre school connect with society and social issues at large. So I thought it was a very compelling play to get them connected with issues that we see in our current political climate through the prism of what happened in the late 1980s.
Jed, can you tell us a little bit about the play and maybe what audiences should know before coming to see it?
Well, I'd be happy to. The play is truly about the moments before, during, and after the Romanian changeover from the communist regime into what they hoped was a more free-thinking and democratic way of creating government. The first act of the play gives you a picture of life under the reign of Ceausescu, the premier of Romania, and the repressive atmosphere. As a matter of fact, I just read recently that there was one secret microphone for every 3 people in the country. So the entire country was basically bugged, and someone was almost always listening to you. So the first act of the play creates that very dark, unfortunate world that the Romanians were living in before the revolution. And then the second act is quite extraordinary because it's based mainly on interviews that were conducted by the playwright Carol Churchill and the original director Mark Wing Davey, talking with Romanians about their experiences during the actual act of the revolution. And probably the most important act is the third act because it deals with what happens after this great event in a country and how the people put their lives together, having grown up and completely being told what to do, how to think, where to go, when to go. And then when you confront freedom for the first time, what happens? What are the dangers? And so often in that situation, there's a large part of the populace who wants to go back to the old way because at least they knew they had certainty in their lives, and freedom is uncertainty. And so for a whole country to readapt its way of thinking to that is a very, very complicated process, and I think the play very beautifully examines all 3 moments in Romania at that time.
Peter, I think that speaks to your point about how relevant it is. We keep hearing about these revolutions on the news. This is really a question for both of you. Do you think that this performing the play now will help the students and the audience members understand what's happening better?
Well, I definitely do, because you're going to see it through the prism of Romania, but the echoes and the resonances are everywhere. If you look at what's happening in the Arab Spring, and you see these states that are toppling, leaders that have had an authoritarian rule for so long, and that the people have finally risen up and said, enough is enough. I think our students connecting with those thoughts through this play is very important. I want them to be politically aware, socially responsible young people. That's what a college education should be about, taking them on a journey beyond American naturalism and Broadway and all the things that are very, very dear to them and important to them. But they should also know that there is a great social and educational mission in these playwrights. And somebody like Carol Churchill, I mean, she went out to change the world by writing this sort of a work, took some theatre students to Romania and actually did the journey that these students will be going on in a sort of way under Jed's guidance, without the trip to Romania. But I think it's terribly important that they look out from the comfort of their world here in Pittsburgh and a very, very prestigious university setting at Carnegie Mellon, and understand that the world is changing and that people are having very tough times in a lot of areas. And I think that they will connect very clearly through this sort of dramatic writing.
Jed, how will you help the students understand the Romanian culture?
Well, I have been very fortunate to have spent the last 5 summers, a month each summer, in that part of the world. I've been working with an international theater laboratory in Bulgaria, which is the next door neighbor of Romania. So I know that part of the world fairly well. Although I have already learned that each country has a very unique flavor and taste to it, and different customs, different feelings, and even though Bulgaria and Romania are next door neighbors, they are very different. One actually, Romania, and the language Romanian is actually a Romance language. Romania was settled by Roman soldiers, actually, and hence the name Romania. And Bulgaria is clearly a Slavic country. They will say they invented the Cyrillic alphabet. Russians dispute that, but the Bulgarians claim that it's theirs. So they are two different cultures. I was very fortunate this summer to be able to spend a few days in Bucharest and walk around, and I had already done a lot of my research, so I walked around and went to all the places where the big events happened. Fortunately, my hotel was right near a very large city municipal park, and in the evening I would go and walk around the park, and if I heard someone speaking English, I would sit down and talk with them and ask them about their experiences in the revolution. So just to get a flavor, a very brief taste, and I would never ever say that I was an expert in that part of the world, because it's so complex and so deep that it's really a lifetime of study to understand everything about the cultures there. But just to get that taste, take a few photographs, get to talk to a few people, I'm very excited about being able to bring that back to the rehearsal and apply some of the knowledge I've gathered over the last few years into the production.
It's important to me for the school that we have an international reach. I joined the school about 3 years ago from Australia, and Australia's a huge island, but a long way away from everywhere. So Australians are quite used to travelling, and you look at the world as a long way away, but you have to go and visit it because no one's nearby. And when I came here, one of the first things that I thought about was how can we take this very, very excellent theatre school and value add to it, and I thought the international experience is probably the one that we should look to first. And we're very lucky to get some funding from John Wells, one of our graduates, to help us bring in international guests. So we've just had a visit by a leading German director and his musical director from the Ernst Busch School in Berlin, who came in for 6 weeks to work with the students so that they got the feeling of what is contemporary Berlin theatre, how is it made, what are the differences, and there are substantial differences. In attitude, in technique, in just the whole rehearsal process, in expectation, in political exploration. And we just also took 30 students to Prague over the summer, many of whom had never been outside of America. So getting a glimpse into how the world works, it's very hard to do plays if you have no experience of travel or seeing what a communist country might be like or a post-communist country might be like. Because in Prague you can see 2 blocks away from the downtown, which is like breathtakingly beautiful, there is still old Prague, and there are people living in semi-communist sort of settings, poor housing, the riches of downtown Prague haven't reached out to them yet. So it's very good for, I think, the students to see how change happens. And as part of the play of Mad Forest, it's what happens after a revolution. It affects some very well, but it does affect a lot of people who are left behind, who were told what to do all their lives. So when you go to the outskirts of Prague, you go to a crematorium or you go to, ladies sitting on the street selling flowers, you know that they're part of an old system that they're actually pining for a bit. Because they were told and they were given directions as to how their life would unfold. Now it's up in the air. They have to make their way, and they've had no training for it. So I think for the students to travel and to see what's going on in places that they're not necessarily going to get to, as poor poor students who are getting out with college loans, travelling the world's not high on the agenda sometimes. So it's great that we've been able to help them get there. It's wonderful, I think, that Jed goes and does this European experience and brings that back into the school each year. So he brings back with him a wonderful Bulgarian movement specialist who comes to work with the students each January. So the more you reach out, the more contacts you make, the more that students will have an understanding of the wider world, and their contact base just spreads.
Peter, can you tell us a little bit about the rest of the season?
Well, we started with Good Person of Szechuan, a great, big, huge Brecht piece, arguably not one of his best pieces or most popular pieces, but we chose it because it's got a huge epic sweep to it. And the story is there room on earth for a good person? And that's argued backwards and forward in Brecht's style, accompanied by 14, 15 new songs. We brought out the music director from the Ernst Busch School. So there's this big production, pretty interesting roles. We double cast it so that everybody had a chance to play a major role. We did it on our big stage with rather large forces. No theatre company could afford to do what we did. I mean, we had 50 or so people involved in this show. Music, orchestra, huge amounts of costumes and lighting and digital art and all that sort of thing. It's really what a theatre school should be doing, large-scale works. When our kids graduate, they're going to go out and often they'll go to New York and they'll be in a small venue, with half a dozen lights, and they've got to make it work. So this is the time in their life where they should be exposed to large forces. So we started with Good Person. We're going into Mad Forest now to see, to relate their world to a political world. We then go into, because we're very strong in the music theatre area, we're doing Sweeney Todd. When we do something that's very well known like that, or has had a distinguished career, and there's two Sweeney Todds about to happen in Pittsburgh, one at Pitt and one with us, which is great. I love there to be many productions so that students see various ways of interpreting them. I like to do something a little different with it. So we brought in Joe Colarco from New York, who was really going to set it in a very interesting setting. So any expectation you have of it looking like the Broadway version, that's out the window. This is going to be a very intense, intimate, almost like a seance, starting in a very small Victorian room and a family just sitting, ruminating on things that have happened, and suddenly out of that grows this musical. So first of all, it's a fabulous piece, and it offers wonderful roles, and it's very demanding, I think, for the students having a leading New York director come in from outside. We know the students, and they get used to us. So Jed and I can say to every student, I think you should be doing that, and the student just nods and says, oh yes, you've told me that before. When you get somebody who's from the profession coming in, who can actually alter your career, or open a door to your career, or close a door to your career, suddenly the stakes are a lot higher. So it's good for them to hear it. They're about to go out the door. They're about to graduate. So it's time for them to meet the real world. So we do that. And then we're finishing with a beautiful play, William Inge's Bus Stop, which hasn't been done for... It was very popular for a while. The film came out, Marilyn Monroe. It was, a huge hit. And then it sort of just went back into the drawer for a while. So I think it's, again, wonderful that the American students know something about the American theatrical history, and Bus Stop's one of the absolute icons of it. So that's what we finish with. Not only they're our biggest shows, but actually a lot of very interesting work happens in our other theatres. We do about 17 productions a year with directors in the undergraduate program and directors in the master's program. So we really cover an enormous amount of territory. We're about to do Hair in a rehearsal room with a piano and a cast of thousands than we do Turn of the Screw. So, there's a balance between contemporary work, difficult work, challenging work that you'd never do under any circumstances, but we're doing it in a rehearsal room, and then some of the great icons of the theatrical canon. So I think it's a pretty broad and interesting season.
Wonderful. Peter and Jed, thank you so much for coming on. I really look forward to seeing Mad Forest, and best of luck with the rest of your diverse and big season. Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama presents Mad Forest, running December 1st through 10th. For tickets, call 412-268-2407 or visit them online at drama.cmu.edu. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.